Okay, here we go. So hopefully you can see my screen. What I wanted to talk about today, well, first of all, I'm incredibly excited to be here. And I'm very honored actually to be a member of this very strong community full of powerful, talented, and very passionate women. It just warms my heart, really, especially now during this whole difficult times. I will not go into further ado of introducing myself. My name is Anna. I guess that's all you need to know at this point. Doesn't really matter what I am. It rather matters what we're going to talk about today. If you want to learn more about me, feel free to go on LinkedIn, reach me out over there. Very happy to get connected, and also ask any questions if you have any afterwards, of course, or if I manage to finish earlier and don't go off track, then I will be very happy to answer the questions in the chat area. So today I actually want to talk about gender, obviously gender in the career path. That's all about lately, especially women and their role in tech specifically. Women tech is a very tricky matter, as I learned for the last 7 years. But from my perspective, I really want to talk about why gender should not matter for your career, actually, but you do. And I intentionally making a grammatical mistake over here. I'm not saying you should matter. I'm actually saying you already do matter. And I just want to show how sometimes gender should go on the second or even third or the fourth row, or leave the room completely, because we're talking about the real experts with real expertise, experience, and powerful knowledge. And there is a reason why there is a pause symbol here, because the opportunity, now we have actually this opportunity, when we have had it for the last 2 or 3 months, is a lot about actually stopping and thinking. If we stop and think, and we start listening, and we start asking the right questions, then maybe lots of decisions, bad decisions, can be avoided, and good decisions can actually go ahead. Percentage of senior roles held by women. I want to start the talk with very boring datum, actually very boring data, which you can see here. And I will not be reading it off the slide. You all can read. I'm not actually a big fan of death by PowerPoint, so I'd rather just, I'm going to be guiding you through my thoughts, thinking out loud, rather than really reading off the slides. But if you look at the numbers here, the pattern is quite obvious. We do have underrepresentation, mildly speaking. We have below 35% of women. We look into the areas, geographical areas, Eastern Europe, Asia Pacific, the EU, North America, Latin America. We look into the roles as well. I'm especially sad about this statement, that about 29% of senior management roles are held by women, the highest number ever on record. Amazing. Makes me feel very sad for us. Actually, not for us, but for the world community. And why I specifically showing you the senior roles held, because I am a member of a senior leadership team at FlixTech, at FlixBus, and I'm the only woman there, which is kind of awkward, at least on the people management side. I have fantastic women on the principal engineering side and testing side, but in terms of people management, I'm kind of the only one, which sometimes matters that I have to be a member of a boys' club. The question is rather, do I actually need to behave as a member of a boys' club? That's a different story. So keep these numbers in mind. I'm specifically not giving any attitude, not giving any characteristics, not even giving any kind of judgment for this. Because the question is, do we even need to judge this? Do we even need to accept these numbers? Which brings me to the next point. Questions that we ask. The gender in tech, and usually the gender question, is a big topic all over the communities. Nowadays on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, mostly about the color, about the gender, right? These topics are very important. And I'm incredibly pumped and happy to see that these topics actually being discussed. But what I sometimes see missing is actual questions. What does matter, the question or the answer? When we see these numbers over here, the first thing that triggers in our mind, this is unfair. This is not okay. Let's go wage war on men, right? I'm so exaggerating, but on purpose. But do we go back a little bit and ask, where are these numbers coming from? Why are these numbers this way? Why is there not a significant difference between the regions, although we thought there would be? Why, for instance, for HR, we have the biggest percentage, 43, and for sales directors and chief information officers, we have 17 and 16, respectively. this is where fact and attitude start fighting a little bit. What we see on the social media nowadays is a lot about the attitude. It's not about the facts, because the facts can be interpreted. The facts can be demonstrated in a certain way. The attitude is something that goes in the front. And then it's only about the fight of who has a stronger attitude at this point. This is where the bias comes into play. It's kind of a product of attitude and jumping to answers rather than asking the questions. And this is when it becomes incredibly dangerous. If you look into the intentional and unintentional bias when we choose women to join our companies, for instance, or when we offer them educational fellowships, etc., I've learned for the last 10 years that unintentional bias is much more dangerous than intentional. With intentional bias, you can still have a conversation. You can bring counter arguments. You can kind of get the person over to your camp saying that, you know what, actually gender doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I have in my pants. What matters is what I have here, my experience and my expertise. The unintentional bias is much more dangerous because it comes naturally. It comes from education, the family, the background. I don't know, what shaped you? What kind of books did you read when you were a kid? This is where it all comes from. And then we ask ourselves, where and when does it all originate? Where this bias actually starts happening? And in the end, whether gender even matters. Is it actually a gender problem? Or is it about social institutions, education, setup? That's where it brings me to the educational and public opinion. Family setup, educational opportunities, and social institutions. When you get born, it's a lot about what are you playing with as a girl? Should you play with dolls? I hated dolls when I was a kid. And my parents genuinely thought it was something wrong with me, so they actually had to get me to the child psychiatrist. That was actually quite a thing. Very proud of it now. Wasn't funny at that moment. When you have educational opportunities given or taken, in some areas a woman is not even allowed to go to school or to college, right? Or maybe it's not about allowing, it's just about not being able to. And when I want to become an engineer, for instance, at school already, they look at me, nah, don't even bother with maths. Here, literature, PR, communication, you know, that kind of stuff. Good for you. Psychology, maybe. I hated math when I was a kid at school. But was it because I was dumb? Or was it because actually the teacher didn't really spend proper time and try to find the way to explain it to me? That's also a very good question. Social institutions, us joining, again, am I joining as a developer? I'm really celebrating when I have in the loads of CVs that I have to go through, when I have actually a women's CV over there. And I'm really that close to falling into a very dangerous pit of hiring a person just because she's a woman, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So this kind of a bucket of family setup, educational opportunities, and social institutionalization. And then we have a second bucket, which is, to me, actually much more powerful. When we as women managing, or we as experts, because I really don't want to put it strictly to women, are managing to use our emotional intelligence and become more emotionally intelligent with every single obstacle we have, and we are ready to take risks and opportunities. Is it easy to just become a victim in this point and say, okay, I didn't have a good family setup, I was not actually offered an opportunity to go to the tech school? Or is it about applying, taking the risk and opportunities and go there and fight for it? And is it on us, those who are actually in more privileged communities, Western world, to create those opportunities for those who have less abilities to fight and take risks? Because I can fully understand. I worked in India for about half a year. I traveled all over the world, and I saw where when I go there and give a passionate speech about opportunities, a woman stands and says, look, you're telling me about opportunities. I mean, I cannot even get there. I cannot even start thinking about it. So it's ingrained much deeper than just attitude, than just a family setup, than just educational opportunities. It's about how we actually empower those who don't have those, and it's about us collectively taking risks and opportunities. Then it comes to the recruitment. You're finished, you're educated, you have a degree or you don't, doesn't really matter, especially in tech, hired fantastic developers who didn't even have a bachelor degree. And then the recruitment comes into play. I've been recruiting for the last 15 years, and more or less, I mean, as an expert, for instance, and then later, actually as a hiring manager for the last 7 years. And when I see the vacancies, profiles and CVs, interviews and on-sites, all those, there are two very interesting tendencies that I've seen. The one, of course, is the company. We still really suck at gender neutralizing the job descriptions, really. It's just unbelievable. But what I also see very often are the candidates, the women candidates. When I finally have a pleasure to have a women candidate for, God forbid, full stack developer, I see very often two tendencies. The first one, the woman starts apologizing for being a woman. She starts excusing, yeah, I'm actually not planning to have kids, and I will manage to kind of combine household and career. And I'm sitting there. I don't even care. I see you as a fantastic expert. I don't care what you do in your free time. You're going to be amazing over here. Please don't tell me. I'm not asking you whether you're going to have kids anytime soon. Because if anyone asks me during the interview, I'm going to smack them and leave the room right there and then, because that tells me a lot about the culture in the company, more than any website and a value proposition that they have. And the second tendency that I see is that women start replicating and mimicking men's behavior. That's a very, very interesting point. They think, okay, if I'm more assertive, if I'm going to kick ass, then I'm going to kick ass man style. Again, as a hiring manager, I don't need a replica. I need you. And this is a mutual kind of relationship here. The company needs to be ready to look at the expert, not at the gender. I don't care what's in your pants. I care what's in your head and what you bring to the table. And a candidate should be comfortable enough in the shoes in which she, in this particular case, she is. And this is where the experience and networking comes into play. I need that. I need to see how you can actually interact, what experience you have. And in the end, the recruitment bias actually should go away. Does it even exist? Well, it does. But in this particular case, both sides are making it happen. The same happens with the career development. We're talking about expert and leadership path. So many women I see choosing the expert path just because, going into the director and VP side, managing man techies, I'm sure I cannot do that. Visibility and marketing. When a woman actually finally has guts, goes over and says, I want to go into the leadership path, there are very interesting points that pop up in her mastery framework or in her professional development. Please be more visible, market yourself, and also communication style has to be more assertive. Or you're too emotional. Like, seriously? And I've seen it a lot, even in my company, which makes me incredibly sad. What I would like to see is the gender agnostic performance assessment and career path and framework that is offered. It's a very difficult job to offer this, but we offer this to those who are actually ready to take it. Of course, all that brings me to the focus point. Focusing on the gender, is it actually a good or a bad thing? And what I realized again for the last 5 years, and it's been really a revelation for me, there is a good focus and there is a bad focus. A good focus is boosting programs, open conversations, sharing stories. That's why stories. I'm a big fan of sharing stories. Nothing is more powerful than an anecdote. This is a good focus. A bad focus is when a recruiter or I'm a manager, thanks God didn't happen at Flixbus, but did happen before, comes and says, look, we have a quota. We need to have 50% of women in leadership. Let's hire this woman in the CV. And my question is why? The skills don't match. Doesn't matter. We need to hire her because she's a woman. Okay, you're doing a great disservice to a woman, to the poor woman right now, because it's absolutely not what's going to help her. You should not be hiring someone because she or she's a woman and because you have a racial or a gender quota. It's about hiring someone who actually fits the expertise, the skills, and who has a passion and culture fit to make it happen. So what I would be proposing is try to defocus actually not in order to focus better. Focusing on the right skills, expertise, providing the right tools, institutions for women so that we have a equal level playing field so that gender doesn't even come into play. So that we're not talking about maternity and paternity leave. We're talking about parental leave. That's different. This way, the whole thing just goes away. On the right, I just kind of put some of the institutions or events that have been happening, hackathons, matchathons, where I did not see gender popping up at all. I saw amazing developers who were kicking ass with the code, helping people who were in need during COVID-19. So what I see with the way forward, I'm not saying it's super easy to do. I know it's easier said than done, but each and every of us could start propagating it a little bit. Point number one, always remembering the context and the discourse. It's important. It's not just about, we have a quota, 50% of women, go. No, it's about what kind of women. It should not matter whether it's a woman or a man. It's about the expertise. It's about the quality of the CV. It's about the fit. And then the women will be popping up more and more because they won't be afraid to go into the technical education in the first place. From top and bottom, it's not enough to hire a executive officer of diversity and inclusion and say, okay, the job is done. The job isn't done. The job isn't solved. It's about having this ingrained, the combination of this skills, experience, and match, including the gender, man, woman, or whatever way you actually identify yourself. It should be coming from top, from the CEO, but also from the bottom. It's not like you bring and say, these are the values you believe in now, and everyone believes in it. No, it doesn't work like that. It's about ingraining it into the organizational development and process structure. It's a long process. It's about hiring people who actually believe that gender doesn't matter. It's about actually having these conversations every single day, having it a part of the conversation, making it inclusive, so that it becomes natural that, yeah, gender, whatever, great developer, that's all that matters. VP, woman, whatever, as long as she knows what she's doing. And what is most importantly, sharing stories. The stories are incredibly powerful. I see it these days, today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, in this particular platform. That's why the organizers are absolutely amazing what they've done, but also sharing stories every single day. Platforms through mentoring, coaching, does not matter. Coffee tables, coffee machines, by the way, best generators ever of talks. Share the stories. Because one thing when I provide a theoretical framework and say this is how it's supposed to work, another is when you actually see someone who did it. And then you start comparing and realize, I'm actually, at the beginning, she doesn't have three legs or extraterrestrial brain. No, she's exactly like me. She started exactly like me. So what did she do differently? Or where was she? What were the circumstances that were different? And sharing stories is exactly what we're doing over here. And this is something that I would like to continue happening. And this is pretty much all that I wanted to talk about today. Yeah, I will now stop sharing the screen. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will be very happy to answer those. If you have any questions, feel free to put them. Yeah, the books. Do you have any books to share about feminism? Yes, I do, and I will be very happy to share those. Just feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. I will be very happy to continue that conversation. What role do us men have in the conversation? Actually, a big one, because I see men empowering a lot. Starting these conversations together with women. It's not just about women. That's why during the whole talk, I did not say a single time about women driving this. It's about men and women doing this together, because the door is one, and it doesn't really matter which gender you use. The man actually can help a lot in starting these conversations and helping them to develop. The LinkedIn profile, I'll post it here as well. I see, oh my God, I see so many questions here. Have I considered tackling the subject of bias by using small digital games in organizations? This is actually a fantastic idea, Bogdan. Thank you very much. I actually I could connect you even with a person who's been doing the gaming, using the whole game in theory and the games to eradicate bias. So this is actually an awesome idea, and I've already seen that working very nicely in much bigger companies and in startups. So that's actually a very good point. How to stop underestimating yourself? Well, in the nutshell, I would say don't start underestimating yourself in the first place. There are lots of conditions. There are lots of environmental conditions that we're in. But in the end, all the tools that we kind of get is all about understanding that we are exactly as powerful as any man or woman would be. Again, it's not about the gender. It's about what we can take, what kind of opportunities we can take, what kind of tools we can use, and how we can become better. It's not about the gender. It's just here it has to switch. It took me 20 years. Probably will take 50 more if I live that long. But it's not about underestimating yourself as a woman. You can underestimate yourself as a personality, but that's of course a different story. What does it take to change from human science to the tech career? This is actually not that hard at all. Why I love tech so much is because tech is one of the areas which is helping to erase and eradicate this kind of difference between genders. I actually see that quite powerfully, because in the end, what matters is how well of a developer or agile tester you are. And in the end, what I also see is that switching to tech is actually not that hard at all. You can learn tech. You can learn on your own. There are lots of resources out there for you. And this is something that I find actually super awesome. If you want to switch, you just switch. Yes, you have to invest your time, you have to invest your money, but it's a little bit easier than switching into, I guess, other areas where I actually need super degrees and stuff. So this could be something much, much easier. What do we mean by culture fit? How will women fit into the boys club culture? Love that question. I was doing that. I'm still doing it. One thing that I learned by culture fit is not about trying to fit. Actually, the fit is the wrong word now that you ask. It's not about fitting in. It's about understanding whether it's your culture or not. And it's very important. When you join the company, you have to realize that this is your culture. If it is your culture, then you go ahead. The boys club is not a culture. The boys club is toxic behavior that we see in a certain culture. That already should tell you a lot about the culture. I am in the boys club. I've always been since I joined tech. And many, many familiar faces here have been, I'm sure. And how I managed to fight it is very simple. I'm not trying to fit in the boys club. I'm not trying to behave as a boy. I'm not a boy. I am myself. And if I find jokes inappropriate, I tell they're inappropriate. If I give my joke and actually educate others, you know what? Jokes can also be gender neutral. And I just being myself there. Of course, I understand not everyone can be. If you are senior leadership, it's a little bit easier probably than being outside of it. But still, you have to be aggressively yourself. It's hard, but I didn't say it would be easy. And in this particular case, there will be even no need to fit the boys club, simply because the boys club will just go away because there will be more women in there, and it will become just a club. And the second question will be, do we even need a club? Yeah. What other questions do we have here? Lots of, not that easy. Fully agree. No one said that would be easy, for sure. How to promote yourself as a successful woman in technology without being viewed as bragging. Love it. Bragging. It's right. Like putting yourself out there, being, aggressive about it. The thing is that I've seen it a lot, like men actually, for them it's easier, I guess. I don't know. Depends on the man as well, but also depends on the woman. Again, I'm putting the gender out of the picture here. Try to erase it for a second. Even when you ask a question, I see here the gender is like a big pink elephant sitting in the room. Put it away. Gender is not in a picture. Without bragging, it's a completely different story. When I see people going out there and selling themselves, it's always very easy to say whether the person is purely selling him or herself because there is no content in there, or they actually come into play and they have something to say. Trust me, it will be, if people whom you're working with are worth your trust, worth your time, they will very easily see that you have something to say. And you're not using the cliche words and the cliche statements, but it's actually something that you live and something that you preach and you walk the walk and you don't just talk the talk, right? So it's not about the bragging, it's just about having a right combination of saying, okay, this is my outside, this is how I look, this is how I present myself, and this is my inside. This is what I can actually do. And once we take the gender out of the equation, the whole question of bragging or aggressiveness or assertiveness will not be there either, because it's just unnecessary. Regardless of a gender, if a person is a prick, egoistical, self-in-love, it will be always that way. And it will be your choice whether you want to work or the company want to promote that kind of person or not. It will tell you a lot about the culture. Regardless of the gender, you say when it needs to be said, you are there, you're given space to talk. And this is very important. This is what I meant by from bottom and from top. Then, again, it doesn't matter whether you're a woman, man, or transgender, or whoever you are, you have the right space and you have something to say and you have something to do, rather than just purely aggressively sell yourself. Other questions? If I could summarize 1 and 2 sentences, how would you educate the employees that diversity matters? I would say that diversity matters because it's incredibly powerful. When we are compromising on a diversity, we are cutting ourselves and robbing ourselves of fantastic talents. And by diversity, I don't just mean gender here. I mean all the diversity, colors, opinions, religions, whatever. it should not even come into play. The only thing that diversity can do is empower and make the company stronger. It will never, ever, ever make a company weaker or will create unhealthy culture or whatever it is. Diversity is always incredibly strong. It creates very healthy relationships. It creates healthy discussions. Yeah, that can be brutal sometimes. It can be hard, but diversity is your friend. And this is what I would say if I had to just go out there and say and try to explain to the employees why diversity actually matters. Men love to brag and they enjoy it. Women tend to say 100% true always. What do you think about it? Yes, gender does matter. Actually, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't. Gender does matter because otherwise we wouldn't be different, right? In this particular case, I would say that gender, yes, men do brag, but I would not agree that men brag more or women tend to say 102% truth always. Not really. Actually, not really. It's again, I would like to turn to gender agnostic here. It's not about that women tend to say truth and men tend to brag. It's about the culture. Again, it's about your culture, how you were brought up, and whether you have inside content. If you have nothing to say for yourself, you have nothing to show for yourself in terms of aspirations, experience, hard work, then yeah, you will actually fall into the bragging part. If you, regardless of the gender again, if you actually have something behind, if you have experience, if you have strong kind of, profile, and if you are passionate, if you want to learn, then the bragging will not even be needed. Your message will be strong. It's not about how loud you are sometimes. It's just about what the content is. But I know what you're going to say to us. It will say that many companies just hear the loudest. That is true. And that's where I'm coming when we as women actually get to the senior leadership. It's our responsibility and it's our job to eradicate this toxic culture of the loudest gets the seat, or the one who gives a monologue instead of talking at you rather than talking with you. That has to be eradicated and that should not be tolerated. And it's our responsibility when we get there on the top to actually eradicate that behavior. Yeah. And I will say, feel free to contact Igel. I'm I think we're running out of time here already, kind of almost 20 minutes. It was absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I was very happy to see all of you. It was super inspiring. If you want to contact me on LinkedIn, feel free. If you want to continue our conversations, also please feel free to do that. I love you guys. It was amazing. I felt lots of questions. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of them. But please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will be very happy to answer any remaining ones and have a conversation. Thank you so very much. Have a wonderful week and enjoy the whole event. Ciao.